Brad Maloney is famous for his fancy footwork, and he may be the tonic the Breakers need after a slow start to the season.
And we've created so many chances but just haven't been able to put the ball in the back of the net.
No trouble getting them in the net against Brisbane last weekend. The 5-0 victory was the Breakers' best win so far in the National Soccer League. Maloney missed the season's first 8 games with the Breakers, trialling with a team in Holland. In his absence, Newcastle wasn't performing. However, work visa problems brought the young striker back home, and things are looking brighter in the Breakers camp.
The team's spirit at the moment is very high, particularly with the win on the weekend, and I think we're really starting to get it together.
The Breakers play at home against Sydney Olympic on Friday night at 7:45. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
These 46 Angora goats are grazing peacefully amid the green grass of controversy. Hemmed in by an electric fence, the goats have been brought in to eat away unwanted plants such as bitu bush by construction company McCloy's, which bought 170 hectares at Greenpoint last month.
Virtually just to clear this 4 acres of land and the other 4 acres on the other side. That's about it.
But the Greenpoint Action Committee, which is fighting any development on the land to push for a public bush park, says the goats should go. The committee asserts the goats will indiscriminately eat native flora as well as trample a regenerated area.
You can see the paddock yourself, there's nothing there of value, or it's only grass and a bit of bush, and they're just eating that down.
And it's not just the grazing that's raising concerns over Greenpoint's future. Former Lake Macquarie Mayor Ivan Welsh has threatened to take legal action on behalf of the city's ratepayers if the present council pays more than $4 million for Greenpoint, the amount he says it could have been bought for.
These people have gone backwards. They've just absolutely gone backwards through litigation and through procrastination and not making decisions.
But Labor Alderman John Jenkins says the Ivan Welsh Council passed up the opportunity to acquire Greenpoint for $4 million or less. That's denied by Mr Welsh, who says despite his efforts, political games ruined any chance of gaining this land for public ownership. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Both Newcastle and ACT went into today's game unbeaten. It was 60 overs aside and the locals were first to bat. The under-24-year-olds played confidently, Charlestown's Jeremy Barnes hitting 112 runs. His teammate Ross grabbed 65, Newcastle looking strong, finishing on 5 for 277. So there were runs to be had, but the ACT visitors never looked good. After just 1 over, they were 2 down for naught. After 30 overs, 5 for 85. Tonight, selectors will pick a team to play the rest of country New South Wales. After the showing at Carl Oval, Newcastle players should feature.
The recent fine weather couldn't have been kinder to the country club's developers, ensuring a healthy flow of holidaymakers through the front doors. The $1.5 million redevelopment was designed to keep the original style of the 1950s. It includes a new 140-seat restaurant, named after Australian sporting legend Gelignite Jack Murray. Memorabilia surrounds the walls. Outside sits Murray's grey ghost, winner of the 1954 Around Australia Red X Trial. The beach bar has been refurbished, so has the popular beer garden, offering some respite from the hot sun. The facelift has provided 20 extra jobs, and according to Dennis Muddle, that's only the beginning.
The existing country club building will be refurbished, and there'll be a hotel conference centre built where the arcade and beach house units are currently situated. You got to understand this is a 5.5 acre block, so it's going to take us a little time to get right around it.
Meanwhile, there's another potential for property development west of Shoal Bay. About 30 hectares of bushland at Fame Cove will go under the auctioneer's hammer late next month. Zoned as non-urban, the property is expected to attract considerable interest, its new owners securing their own private parcel of coastal paradise. Melinda Smith, NBN News. The tides have turned for lifelong friends Bill Fitzgerald and Ron Fraser. 46 years ago, it was Bill who helped then 4-year-old Ron through the ranks of the Cooks Hill Surf Lifesaving Club. Bill holds the honour of being Australia's longest-serving member, devoted to his beloved club for the past 75 years.
I handicapped them, got trophies for them, and sometimes it was dull and a bit rain and they wouldn't. I'd have to start them and judge them and all.
This time last year, the doctors said the 92-year-old pensioner had probably taken his last step, but Battleaxe says he's proved them all wrong.
They thought, oh, he's not going to live long, so we'll get what they can from him. Wasn't that right? Yeah, get what. Right.
And you're still around?
I'm still going in here. Memories of days that have gone, memories of old folks revealing, memories of...
Richard Townsend has been a beach inspector for 15 years. He says what may start out as a fun, relaxing day at the beach can easily turn to one of regret.
I had an incident yesterday where a chap was enjoying himself surfing and then got hit in the mouth with another bloke's surfboard, causing him to lost a couple of teeth.
To ensure a safe surf, Richard Townsend suggests to continuously check your position in relation to the flags on the beach. He warns one of the greatest dangers can be changing tides.
As the tide starts to drop away, the water starts to move with it. So that creates a rip, and that's when people get into the most trouble.
Out of the water, a major concern is overexposure to the sun. Medical authorities advise to avoid exposure between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. If you do go out in the sun, cover up with clothing or sunscreen lotion. After half an hour in the sun, untanned and unprotected skin will burn. For people with a tan, their safe sun time exposure is slightly longer. However, having a tan is not an ultimate protection against developing sunburn or worse, melanoma. Along the coastal strip north from Newcastle, the incidence of melanoma is double the state's average. The two groups most likely to develop melanoma are people with fair freckled complexions and people, regardless of their skin type, with moles on their body. And the more moles, the higher the risk.
That if you have, for example, more than 10 moles on your left arm, which the studies have used as an index, the risk of getting melanoma is tenfold.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News. Preparations began early around Newcastle's harbour foreshore, with roads cordoned off to allow stages to be erected ready for tonight's 4-band concert. A fireworks display will also be launched from a barge in the middle of the harbour at midnight. The area will be targeted by police, with 50 officers rostered on to deal with tonight's expected large crowds. Also revving up for a bumper night, the city's taxis. Just in time to deal with the rush, each car has been fitted with a mobile data terminal. Apart from Canberra, Newcastle is the only city in Australia to replace noisy two-ways with this Canadian-designed system, claimed to be the most sophisticated of taxi computers. Each terminal is linked by radio with a computer based at taxi headquarters. When a taxi driver signs in for work, his mobile data terminal logs into the computer, telling it which zone or suburb the taxi is in. Once a person rings for a taxi, telephonists record details. The computer then transmits these through to the taxi in the closest zone.
The car first in the zone gets dispatched that job. Immediately it is sent from the dispatcher.
This reduces the customer's wait, plus if a driver doesn't get to his job within 5 minutes, the job is assigned to another car. Another bonus, Jim says it makes for a more pleasant working environment.
Much less stressful, no noise, you can listen to your radio, put a few tapes in, you can actually have a conversation with a passenger.
It's this wall that makes Tony Taylor's father shriek every time he walks into his son's bedroom. As an 8-year-old, Tony was told by his dad he wouldn't be any good at soccer. 8 years later, the boy who supposedly couldn't kick an orange has kicked his way into the national junior squad. On Christmas Eve, this letter arrived from the Soccer Foundation naming Tony in the train-on squad. And the reaction?
Oh, I was stoked. I couldn't believe it. I came home and Dad said I got in. Oh, you're joking? And looked at the letter. I couldn't believe it.
The selection of trophies is testament to the teenager's skill, but there's plenty of hard work behind the success. Every day he works on his trade, and there's no doubt that soccer is always on his mind. Being part of the national squad will open plenty of doors for the youngster, and although his options are open, Tony has his thoughts on one team.
Breakers, preferably, but I'll have to wait and see.
Lismore's rescue helicopter was called out to the emergency just after 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. The patient was in a critical condition. Paramedics worked frantically on the man, managing to revive vital signs of life with CPR and a heart start machine. The helicopter arrived at Lambert Park in Armidale just before 6 o'clock. Ambulance crews delicately transferred the man to a waiting ambulance. Despite efforts, Mr Hickey couldn't be saved. He died just after 10 o'clock last night. There will be a coronial inquiry into the death. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Most drivers haven't let the Christmas cheer get them into trouble this festive season, heeding the message not to drink and drive.
Which is a very good result and would only reflect the fact that people are heeding the advice of police and obeying the road rules and are aware of the importance of not drinking and driving.
More than 5,000 people were breath tested, with 26 people over the limit, a marked decline on previous years. But speeding continues to be a problem. 859 booked for driving too fast over the holiday break. Included in that total was 13 heavy vehicles as well as 2 buses. Too many people also failed to belt up over the Christmas break. 26 people caught for not wearing a seatbelt. Despite this, Senior Constable David Sipple says the overwhelming trend is towards a safer use of our roads by drivers.
I think in general, driver behaviour has improved a lot.
Five years after the dockyard closed, controversy over the heart of the once thriving manufacturing industry, its heavy engineering machinery. Since taking over the site 6 months ago, the Hunter Ports Authority has embarked on a 3-stage plan to sell the equipment. First, the sale of the smaller engineering machinery to both local and interstate buyers. Tenders have been called for the high-tech computer-controlled machinery. The disposal of the yard's older pieces, some dating back 30 years, is stage 3. Hunter Labor Task Force Chairman John Price says heavy engineering has suffered greatly in Newcastle during the past decade. He says the recent sale represents another blow to the industry if the equipment, with a replacement value of $20 million, is sold overseas.
I think it's high time that governments of all persuasions just took a look at what's moving in and out of the country in terms of the private and public sector with heavy machinery and just developed a policy that would encourage people to retain the equipment.
Managing Director of the Hunter Ports Authority, Jeff Connell, says the move to consolidate general cargo operations in Newcastle's port will open opportunities in the export and import markets. Although some interest in the machinery has been shown throughout Australia, an overseas buyer would be welcomed if the best price was offered. He says the 5-year development plan for the site will bring rewards to the region.
Well, it sets us up for the long-term growth of the port as a general cargo as well as bulk and coal exporting port. It will mean a significant boost to the local economy over the long term.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. Christmas Eve marked the beginning of an 11-day statewide operation aimed at safer driving during the holiday season. Although the overall state figures are encouraging, the result has been the opposite in the Maitland district. Despite a graphic media campaign, Hunter motorists apparently missed the message. Police say the figures are alarming. Last year, 44 drivers were charged with drink driving offences. This year, the figures doubled. Speeding fines were up by 113%, and there was an increase of 140% for those refusing to buckle up. There was some heartening news. No fatalities were recorded in the Maitland district. Crashes and injuries were down. Senior Sergeant Ray Smith says his team of 35 Highway Patrol officers were amazed by the results.
I believe that some people honestly believe that they won't be caught and they're prepared to take the risk. And if they are indeed caught, well, they just accept that as c'est la vie.
The high profile on the roads by police is set to continue. Another campaign is to coincide with the Australia Day long weekend.
That operation is codenamed Operation Safe Return, and it's designed to ensure that people return home safely from their holidays, and we'll be doing much the same as we have been doing for the Safe Arrival operation.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. Described as half human, half animal and half circus performer, the unusual equation adds up to the creatures in the circus of Dr. Moreau. It's a colourful and lively adaptation of H.G. Wells's The Island of Dr. Moreau, although the tale is turned upside down. It's a play that features circus skills, including death-defying acts. Children take their parts on stage, as well as the mums and dads. The play follows the search for Olive Bird by her distressed and somewhat mesmerised mother. It's a joint production by the Hunter Valley Theatre Company and Zeal Theatre, designed to reach an audience at all levels.
Yes, we wanted to make it a family show so that not only the kids have a great time, but their parents who bring them along, who are half our audience, also get a lot of the humour and the ideas that come through the show.
The Circus of Dr. Moreau runs daily, Monday to Friday, as well as special twilight performances until January the 22nd. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Accompanied by an alarming rise in heroin overdoses. In the past week alone, 2 people have died in the Hunter and a number of others have been pulled back from the brink of death by ambulance officers.
You find out very quickly when a bad batch is in town because of the number of overdoses that start to occur.
So clearly there's a bad batch around at the moment?
It would appear to be at the moment, yes.
Paramedics believe the heroin currently circulating may be more potent than what users normally inject.
And this heroin appears to be more refined or more pure than what's normal, and people are injecting themselves with what they think is their normal dose, but in actual fact it is more potent and it is causing them to collapse and in some cases die.
But the Hunter isn't the only area confronted with a spate of overdoses. At least 7 people have died from heroin overdoses in Canberra and Melbourne over the Christmas holiday season. Newcastle police are now checking to see if the heroin involved in the Hunter deaths is from the same batch.
We have the heroin samples that we have from the matters up here at Newcastle sent down for analysis. We also contact the police who are inquiring into the deaths in Melbourne and Canberra and find out if there is any similarity in the samples that they get back from the analysts.
Police are also calling for heroin users to contact them to help them trace the drug's origin. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The changes are part of GIO's ongoing review of its motor vehicle insurance rates. Sydney has been divided into 3 areas, with postcodes deciding classification depending on the level of risk.
Postcodes are just a way of grouping certain areas together so we can come up with a rate for that area.
David Noon says higher risk areas are reflected in the cost of premiums, based on the type of vehicle, the age of the driver, the use of the car and the area where it's garaged. The method of separating areas by postcodes isn't used in the Hunter, the North Coast or New England. These regions come under the one regional premium.
We could take that postcode and then charge a loaded rate, but at the moment we feel that our losses and our experiences and our results in this area don't justify that happening.
GIO says the review has meant significant reductions for some vehicles, particularly in northern New South Wales. These figures are based on private use drivers aged 29 to 55 years with 60% no-claim bonus. A Ford Falcon sedan has dropped by $75, a BMW by $460. Some vehicles have increased slightly, a Ford Laser by $4, a Nissan Pulsar by $30. GIO says northern motorists have been propping up their Sydney counterparts for some time. Taking effect on January the 14th, the new premiums will mean a more equitable distribution. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Today's party was at Lambton Pool, more than 1,000 youngsters and their parents joining in the fun and frolic of the afternoon. There were posters to be given out, games, a free barbecue and of course the message of sun protection.
We're trying to encourage 12 to 17-year-olds to cover up. By that what we mean is we want people to put on a 15+ sunscreen, put on a hat, put on a t-shirt whenever they go in the sun.
Thanks to local councils and radio station X107, the Me No Fry message is being taken to 6 places throughout the valley: Muswellbrook, Maitland, Charlestown, Cessnock and Salamander.
According to figures released today, the incidence of cancer in Australia is increasing. On average, 1 in 4 men and 1 in every 3 women will experience some form of cancer before the age of 75, and the most common type is melanoma.
It is encouraging for the Hunter Area Health Service to know the message is getting through.
Over the years we did find that maybe people weren't aware of what a 15+ sunscreen was, but now the children seem to know about them.
There would have been a boil-over if it wasn't for the rain to cool things down. The Americans had already won 2 of the first 3 tests, and the Aussies with new blood Granville Anderson were out for revenge. But the visitors meant business as well. Aussie captain Ron Pine was targeted with a push into the wall. But after 9 heats, the Americans won the test to take a 3-1 lead in the series. The racing moves on to Lismore and Brisbane for the remaining 3 tests.
Smoke-free zones are already in force in offices and restaurants, and within a fortnight, New South Wales will have its first clean air nightclub. While rock music will be played at the Strand Bar at Gosford's Union Hotel, the room will not be filled with smoke.
Well, quite simply, you've got to give people that don't smoke the chance to be able to go out and enjoy themselves without somebody sticking a cigarette up their nose.
There was a mixed reaction from some of the regulars.
I reckon it's good because I don't smoke myself.
Majority of people who come here and that go to the club downstairs do smoke, and I don't think they're going to go outside every 15-20 minutes just for a cigarette. I think they'd rather go somewhere else.
The idea has been endorsed by the Central Coast Health Service.
It'll make a terrific difference because even when you have a smoke-free zone, you're still getting smoke wafting across from the smoking area into the non-smoking area, and air conditioners can't remove it all, although a lot of people would like to think they can. 100% smoke-free, well, there's no smoke there, we know that for a fact.
Jeff Smith from the Health Service believes other nightclub owners will watch with interest the success of this project. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Grossman House in Church Street was built in around 1870. Up until recent times, it was the old Maitland Girls High School. But it's now open to the public. Inside is antique furniture suited to its period. The asbestos roof of the house, however, needs replacing. It lets in the rain, which is damaging the interior. Member for Maitland Peter Blackmore has announced a federal government grant to repair the roof and repoint the brickwork. Columns on the veranda will also be painted. The total cost of the work is $150,000, money Mr Blackmore believes will be well spent.
Maitland prides itself on its heritage, and Grossman House and Brough House nearby, as well as the other buildings in Maitland, we have a tremendous amount of heritage, and it attracts a lot of visitors and a lot of tourists to the area to look at these heritage buildings.
It was a tough day in the field for New South Wales at University Oval. After scoring 396 on the first day, the Blues knew Victoria would take advantage of the ideal batting conditions, and that's exactly what the Vics did. Openers Neil Tatterson and Ian Sartori plundered the New South Wales attack. Spinners Peter Gerhard from Temora and Gosford's Glenn Anderson received most of the attention. The slick outfield frustrated the hosts, but later in the day they had the visitors on the ropes to snatch a win. At Passmore Oval, Queensland continued their good form with a 147-run victory over South Australia. The Queenslanders are quickly becoming the surprise finds of the tournament. Yesterday they set a record total of 435, skipper Brad Spanner scoring 130. The Maroons finished fourth last year, but Spanner says the players now have the confidence to beat the top sides, including their next opponents, New South Wales.
We're full of confidence at the moment for that game, so they're the side to beat, and hopefully we'll put in a good effort that match.
Matthew White, NBN News.
The swimming pool has become almost as commonplace in the Australian backyard as the barbecue. But what's a source of pleasure for many is becoming a point of concern for local government. Under the state government's new Swimming Pools Act, each local council is required to find out how many pools are in its area and which ones are illegal. Rather than go door to door to get some answers, Port Stephens Shire Council will take to the sky and use aerial photography.
The idea is to locate pools which we haven't got a record of, and there's a couple down there you'll probably see in this street.
Mr Manette believes up to a quarter of the pools in the Shire may not be registered with the council.
Well, in total we've got approximately 2,000 pools, and we believe there's probably 500 which we don't know about, and we probably believe that it's easier to pinpoint these from the air.
Council officers will be checking the aerial photographs against their records to detect unregistered pools. The council says the survey is not meant to be intrusive, but helps ensure pool owners are complying with safety standards as part of the push to prevent the tragedy of backyard drownings. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
And they got very cranky and attacked us, and 5 of us have been stung quite handsomely all over. They got in our tunics and everywhere, in our boots.
It looks like a minefield at the moment, but this Broadmeadows site will soon become a major centre for youth welfare in the region. The Samaritans and the federal government are developing the idea, initially setting up 20 positions for 6 months under the Job Skills program.
Job Skills philosophy is to take long-term unemployed people, of minimum of at least 12 months unemployed. Some of these people have been unemployed for 5 years, and offering them work skills and training.
6 old railway carriages will be transported to the site and refurbished to be used as offices. The grounds will be landscaped and there will be a car park with 10 spaces. More than $250,000 will be spent on wages and materials. The centre hopes to serve youth needs, including adolescent health and legal services. Peter Ryan, NBN News.